we have definitely learned all too well how long you can talk about specific topics of World of Warcraft.
Yep. Sorry, everyone. Razorclaw999, familiar face on the channel, who says, do you think Ian doing something with Preach is to replace the Blizzard Media Day this year? Which, that is an interesting one. Replace it? I don't exactly think so. But do a similar-ish job? I kind of have a few suspicions. So, whenever Blizzard do a Media Day, typically speaking, they send out a bunch of invites, and then all the creator people go over to Irvine, and we basically mill about in a hotel with not really that much to do, and then we go to Irvine, or to the actual Blizzard campus for, 1 or 2 days, and that's a kind of a weird one, because generally speaking, it's that sort of thing. You're a bit cynical when you're actually kind of in the biz and you've done these things, but it is very neat first time, and I've only done it once.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I think for me, actually, the only thing that left a sour taste was that me and a bunch of the WoW people got forced to do loads of Overwatch things, and we were just sitting there being like, we don't care about the Overwatch League. I just want to go back to the hotel and write my WoW content. But yeah, what will generally happen, and the example I had is, we all got pulled into this, so when you enter the Blizzard campus, you go past the big orc statue, there's like a little check-in where, you've already signed your NDAs, but they make you sign another NDA for like an on-the-day one. Then you go into a media hall, which is like basically a cinema, essentially. It's actually pretty sweet.
I bet it's actually gorgeous, though, how much money they put into that.
Yeah. No, so it's cool. You've got like the Blizzard sort of media handler people, and then like in that case, Ian sort of came up, gave his presentation. I think there were some things where you weren't actually allowed to record or do anything like that.
Of course.
But there were little sections of the media who didn't know that, so the Blizzard people had to be like, oh, no, don't we do that? Which is kind of funny. And so generally for those media days, they fly everybody out there on Blizzard's dime, which is obviously not cheap.
No, not really.
Funny, on my way there, I got basically the entire universe, according to Alex Jones, explained to me by the driver that Blizzard hired to take us over, which was, that was an experience. Sure, past the time anyway. But they do all of that to give you like this 30-minute presentation. And then after the presentation, everybody filters out into that sort of main plaza around the big orc statue, and you just kind of mill about there until your interview slot comes, or maybe they'll have some playtesting. So that's a general media day. It's very traditional, and when you are going there the first time as press, like, it is cool. You got your little press card, and they hand you, a official WoW backpack that is full of goodies. You open it up, and you're like, okay, yeah, this is all pretty sweet. That's where I met Chris Bratt. The Chris who left Eurogamer, who started... He talked to me when I wanted to borrow his charger, I think, because I forgot mine at the hotel. But he was talking to me about his ambitions, and of course, a few months later, he started People Make Games.
Oh, yeah, that guy.
Yeah, and he is the guy that did that sort of documentary expose thing on Athene. So that was a fun little thing. Point is, though, those media days are a lot of it's a lot of time, it's a lot of money to fly all those media people out, and it's kind of just for a presentation and some interviews. And it's so funny that now we're in the world of everything being remote, and it's just so much more efficient to do like what they did with the beta event for Shadowlands. So it's the sort of thing where I don't really think Blizzard would have a big media event to do. They might have one for, okay, so it's lore videos coming up next week. We've had so much fun getting into them, but your TLDR basically seems to be based on the Dungeon Journal. Jailer wins.
Yeah. So
I wouldn't be surprised if Blizzard would do some sort of media day. Point is, though, those media days are for announcements. So the media day that I went to, that was Battle for Azeroth release date.
So it was this.
So something like this with Preach doesn't replace the media event at all, I think, to answer the question. But I think what it does do is it gives Blizzard that little bit of community engagement that I think they know they need. And I have a suspicion it's that sort of thing where if it's Ian and lore, it's two Blizzard guys answering a bunch of community questions that have been filtered in a very generalized way. Because I always remember back to those Q&As that they would do. I don't know if you'd agree, but they felt like they were Q&As that were 10%, or a small percent aimed at the questions that most of us on like YouTube and Twitch would actually really give a shit about. And then a lot of the rest was like seemingly aimed at your average official World of Warcraft forum poster who doesn't really venture that far into the rest of the World of Warcraft media.
Yeah.
And that would always lead to a big loss for Blizzard. I mean, loads of those things with Ian, they'd be downvoted to hell. The answers wouldn't really be super satisfying because it was a Q&A format. So Ian would just sit down, explain the team's philosophy on an issue, and then it was on to the next question. Because obviously it's an Eternal Company Q&A. It would be a bit weird if Laura then turned around and started challenging Ian on the logic of the things he said in the Q&A that Josh was hosting.
Yeah.
Wouldn't make sense.
Yeah, I get you. I'll pause you for a sec just to make sure stream's actually going okay. I'll try to explain my thought processes to see if this...
Oh, wow. Vryn Thorn, thank you for the 50 super chat. That's, yes, actual real life lore too.
And you also, let's not jinx it, but it looks like that super chat actually fixed the stream. I'm not kidding. I turned around, lights green, frame drop percentage going down. So whatever.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay. Power of
Thank you
the
very much.
actual Winter Queen saved us, I suppose.
Yep, that's fantastic. Yeah, we're good. We will get back onto the show.
Okay, great.
Yep.
So to where I was on Razor Claws.
Yep, media day stuff.
Razor Claws super chat then.
Oh God, mute us, please.
And yes, now we're muted here. So,
Cheers, thank you.
yeah, those big traditional Blizzard media days, they're usually to announce things like, as an example, showing off the Warlords of Draenor opening cinematic. That was an event that they held in a theater in LA that I was invited to and realized I am not going to spend $2,000 in flights to go and watch a 5-minute long cinematic. As much as that cinematic was very cool. So that's what those media days from Blizz are generally for. Something like this with Ian and Preach, that is going to be far more about just general community engagement stuff in a way that is different from the official Q&As. I think people are saying it looks like we're running at 7 frames a second. So
That's them still catching up, I think.
okay, gotcha.
Because I'm watching. I'm actually.
Yeah, people are saying it's better,
temperature,
so I think we're good. So things like that with Ian and Preach, I think it fills a similar function as the Q&A in that it gets ahead of community engagement. Yeah. I think people know Preach is, a pillar of the community to the point where they do that one interview and then there will be multiple Wowhead posts. We'll talk about it. I'm sure Tally will cover it in the weekly reset, stuff like that. It will be talked about. It will get out there. And a core difference between that and a Q&A between Ian and Josh is that basically the ones between Ian and Josh, people don't like him. And I think the reason why people don't like him is pretty clear. They go to a very general WoW audience. It almost feels like a slice of the general forums for World of Warcraft, which is very different to what a YouTube, sort of a YouTube audience, a bunch of that more engaged WoW audience really wants, which kind of just means half the questions there, most of the people actually watching those Q&As don't give a shit about most of the questions. Just doesn't really feel good, makes it feel like it's a waste of time, especially when there's burning community issues that don't get the time that they really deserve. And then the problem is, Ian relays, Josh relays a question from the community to Ian. Ian explains the team's philosophy, and that's really that. It's not like Josh can turn around and start challenging Ian on what's going on. And that's what people want. Not because people want to see Ian be challenged, but people want to dive deeper. Because it's great to hear the philosophy be explained, but I think what people really want is the translation of the team's philosophy into what it actually means for the players and the player experience. And that's the sort of thing where, if you're doing an official company Q&A, you can't exactly have the host really trying to, journalistically grill the person that he's interviewing. So as we move on then to something with Ian and Preach, I think it was interesting. Last time that happened, I think it went really well, that previous one. I think it kind of PR-wise backfired in Blizzard, so I actually respect them quite a bit for doing it again.
Yeah.
I say backfired because, there was the talk about pulling the ripcord. And they obviously didn't. And in a way where a lot of people kind of thought to themselves, oh, well, I guess the ripcord doesn't exist then. So that was like a little bit challenging. And I think a lot of us, even watching that last one, didn't really agree massively with what Ian was saying. Didn't exactly feel like a good sort of resolution was reached.
Yeah, but at least it felt like something.
But yeah, it felt like an actual conversation that impacted like real world sort of World of Warcraft issues. And I think that's why I'm very excited about this new one. So does it replace a media day? No. Does it replace a sort of a Q&A with Ian and Preach? I think yes. And in a way where it will be more successful, it will be better received by the community. Just overall a big win. It's that sort of thing. If the Q&A is 100% Blizzard people and Blizzard people, a bunch of people with preconceived conceptions will go in and be like, oh yeah, well this is a rigged game, blah, blah, blah. But if it's actually external with the community, I think you just get kind of just more of a free win, I suppose. Yeah, so I think that's what's up. I'm looking forward to it. There's certainly a lot of burning questions. I would like to see Ian make sense of conduit energy, especially as we're getting more soulbind slots. I mean, that's just a stupid restrictive system for no reason. So there's some of those things where like sometimes systems in the game are completely baffling and seem to serve no purpose. I would like to see some of those things be challenged, and certainly some of those things just be removed from the game, really, like the conduit energy.
Yeah, no, it's like I really don't look particularly forward to anything that was... I kind of liked some of the stuff in the past because, like, especially around the Warlords time of Lower and Ian's talking, there was actually like something going on. It was nice to have that philosophy and their thinking delivered by a person instead of a forum post. So I did like that move, but I definitely think that for the majority of the community who, at least for the most engaged parts of the community as far as like actually socially and with their videos goes, I think exposing themselves, I mean, it's the same as anything else. If they actually expose themselves to criticism in a way where they can't run and hide from it, like, because obviously they can just, if it's online, they can just close their eyes and they won't have to see anyone complaining or talking shit about their like systems or their design or like the choices they make or their philosophy. But as soon as you're on a call that's public, it's like all accountability is absolutely there. So
yeah,
the more of that they go through, and as long as people can keep it civil, and that's why I think Preach is such a good shout for that, because he's definitely someone who's going to come in with a list of stuff and not grill him necessarily, but he will just be like straight to the point, like, why, like, what? Why have you done this?
Yeah.
And if Ian comes up with a new thing, it will be like, it's like someone like me. I would hear an announcement, I would go and think about the system for half an hour or an hour, and then come back and be like, that's like, I get the idea, but in some sort of vague like hindsight or thinking it through, it would be a problem. But Preach is likely to just spot things and go, actually, what about this? What about all this sort of stuff?
I feel like if I was unfiltered, I'd probably be too aggro for it, because stuff like conduits, I just say back like, yeah, but how is that better for me as a player than glyphs? And yeah, I would try to drill that down to the point where it just comes to it drives more player time, because that's basically one of the few things that would satisfy me, because I'm highly suspicious of some of those systems. So yeah, look, I'm certainly looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think it'll be great, and I think Ian will be more prepared than he was for the last one. Not that he wasn't unprepared. Well, not that he was unprepared or anything like that. It's just I think it'll be now they have experience in talking to each other live. This one's likely going to be a lot better, I think.
Yeah.
Overall.
Yeah, so an interesting situation, I suppose.
Yeah.
I generally want to see the WoW team be more open. I think axing those Q&As, as much as those Q&As didn't really, they rarely did a great job because of the format. I mean, when we lost them, it didn't feel great that there was no replacement. There were these vast swathes of time, and we wouldn't get that engagement with the team. Meanwhile, you do kind of see Final Fantasy XIV's community engagement just blow Blizzard out of the water, which is wild because what you expect from a Japanese company is them being, really reserved in it's sort of in the shadows.
Yeah, that's how Square Enix tend to operate on every other front, where they wall themselves off in their ivory tower and eventually go, hello, here's our video game. We spent Final Fantasy 15 years working on it and it's a nightmare. But Yoshi P's letter from the producer and the digital FF FanFest stuff is all just really, really, really solid for. I mean, when's the last time a Blizzard dev did anything like drink wine and bake cookies on stream?
Yeah,
that's for hours.
Yeah,
it's really.
It's a weird one. I think the community team for World of Warcraft needs, the leadership needs to give them more time, more heads, more resources to actually do stuff to engage the WoW community. It is, I think, in no way the fault of anyone on the WoW community team. I think it is purely just they've got a hard job to do. I think they're definitely understaffed. And I wouldn't be surprised if the importance of their role, because community management, in so much way, it is a development role.
Almost more important sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. I just don't think that gets enough respect at Blizzard. Or maybe whoever makes the decisions.
Yeah, I mean, per Tyvax is writing everything that everyone reads. It's a case where, I would love to see... I mean, obviously, Ian sitting with Preach is a good one, but, in sitting down with other people like Sloot, maybe sitting down with someone like... I don't even... Maybe Tolly, maybe something like that, and then getting Steve and yourself on a live call, or a sort of, not a no-holds-barred interview, but a more let's not talk about anything recent or any marketing points or anything. Let's just sit down and go, all right, let's have a chat about almost like the panels they do at BlizzCons, where it's here's here's behind the scenes stuff. It'd be nice just hello Steve, let's talk for 30 minutes about how you actually, or 40 minutes or an hour, how do you actually do some of this stuff internally.
That's the problem that leads to the Blizzard developers feeling a lot more in an ivory tower and a lot more just sort of cushioned away and protective than they actually are in a lot of ways, where anytime you get an interview with Blizzard people, there's community there, and there's, it's stuff that happens whenever there's very clear talking points. I don't mean talking points supplied by Blizzard, but it's at a BlizzCon, it's at something, and this is the main thing I realized whenever I started doing 30-minute interview slots, and we're lucky in that because of the size of our audience and the reach, we can get a full 30-minute interview slot to ourselves. But then the issue is you really want to dive deep in something, but that if you ask a follow-up question, you've just lost 3 more questions or 2 more questions that are on your list of questions. So in that last interview that I did, it was great. We were getting into some really fun things, and it was Steve and Morgan. So in my head, I was like, right, I'm going to focus on lore with Steve, focus on gameplay with Morgan, and it'd be great to get a bunch out of both of them. I did the lore first. The lore went slightly over time, and then I felt like a bit of a dickhead because, Morgan absolutely did not get his due, and I felt kind of bad about it, afterwards. And it's just a limitation of that format.
Yeah, so I think we have definitely learned all too well how long you can talk about specific topics of World of Warcraft.
Yep. Sorry, everyone.